Hello, welcome punters to the first Outside Fence preview show. I'm your host Tristan Heffernan. As always, I'm joined with Stewart Balls Brown, thankfully, because he's got a lot more idea about the Guineas that we're going to look at on Saturday than I do. Balls, thanks for joining me. How's the confidence levels?
Yeah, good to be with you, Hef. Confidence levels in both Guineas isn't too bad. I think we maybe tonight we can find the winner between us at least, and hopefully give some a bit of insight to the viewers.
That's probably a better point there. We might not tip you the winner, but we're going to go through the main lead-up races for both the Caulfield Guineas and the 1,000 Guineas and talk about a few different angles that we might see in the race, and hopefully it'll jog your brain a bit and you might find the winner yourself even if we don't. So let's jump straight into it, Balls. We're going to start with the Caulfield Guineas. I'm going to pull up the market. Great size field there, the 15 runners, even with the... we've lost Glenn Fittich, haven't we? So 14 runners, but there's the prices there. At first glance, were you surprised by anything in the market?
First off, I'll just say, speaking of surprises, I'm a bit surprised you're with us tonight, considering Glenn Fittich's been scratched. I thought you might have gone out in protest or gone down in sympathy of Glenn Fittich being scratched. But
I did think about it.
Sorry, what was your question again?
Did anything hit you when you first saw the market on the Guineas? That anything surprise you at all?
Not a huge amount. Obviously, the markets have been out for a while and they've been well formed. A lot of people have been talking about the race. Obviously, Glenn Fittich coming out made a few of the favourites shorten up a bit, but not a huge shock. Maybe LA Kirk's a little bit shorter than I thought it would be, but it's understandable that it's favourite.
Yeah, I think that's especially when North Pacific didn't come down with him. Clearly a really strong push from the market for the Sydney horses here. Let's go to a speed map. Some real sharp graphics by myself, if I don't mind saying. Hopefully you can read the names. If not, you'll have to make do with the colours. But this is the speed map we've come up with. Now, Balls, first of all, how quick do you expect them to run along here?
I'm expecting there to be sort of, I suppose, at least a speed that will give each horse their chance. I don't really think there's sort of going to be, you're not going to be too disadvantaged if you're settling in the back half of the field. I think you're going to be given the opportunity to run on. I think the big thing with this map at the moment is obviously we've got Crosshaven there who's drawn the outside gate, so it'll probably have to work across to possibly sit outside the leader. That's where I've got it there. But also you'll see horses who are just behind the leaders there drawn in barriers 1, 2, 3 and 4. They're all likely to probably want the same spot almost, just sort of that box seat type run, second line. So it could be a bit interesting at the start if they all jump well and then them trying to sort themselves out, and that could inject a bit of speed in the race with horses like, as I mentioned, Crosshaven and Mama Reagan as well coming across from wide gates.
Okay, so Mama Reagan sticks out to me there as being likely to be disadvantaged by the map. Give us a quick thought on who you think's advantaged and disadvantaged by their likely settling position here.
Yeah, well, I think if it's settled like this, I think LA Kirk's probably in a good position, given that they'll sort of have the option to come out wide and possibly get on that 3 wide line there. But I suppose the issue might be if you've got Mama Reagan and Grand Slam there 3 deep, that line doesn't go too far. I think the big query horse with the map is Azar. It's drawn, as you can see, gate 14. Now, it's got the speed to be really close to the speed. However, last start in the Guineas Prelude, it didn't spring the lids, and also it was drawn a bit awkwardly, so they rode a negative race on it and settled back in the field. As you can see, they're drawn wide again here, so on this map I've expected them to sort of settle back in the field again, but I'd keep an eye on, if they do go forward, they'd probably notify the stewards, so just keep an eye out for any tactics changes, and if they do go forward from that wide gate, that'll obviously inject a bit more speed in the race, and I think that would definitely start to bring those back markers into the race.
Okay, one more one before we start having a look at these lead-up runs. What do we expect from the track? This is race 8 on a Big 10 race program. Is there any sort of pattern that maybe we've got to keep in mind or we can expect when we're looking at this map?
Yeah, as you said, this is race 8 on a 10 race card, so I think by this time of the day, horses should be able to come down the middle of the track. Possibly the fence would have already gone off or starting to go off a bit. So I'd imagine, they're just edge away from that inside part of the track. Now, they didn't get as much rain in Melbourne today, I think it was forecast earlier in the week. And then I've had a look at the forecast for tomorrow, and there's not as much rain once again. So the track might only be in that sort of could possibly stay in that good 4 range, or possibly soft 5 at worst. So that might be a good thing for the inside holding up through the day. So it's definitely important just to keep, over the next few days, keep an eye on how much rain Caulfield's getting. They'll send out an update, obviously, with the track manager, so he'll give a good overview on sort of what he expects from the day and things like that. So, by this stage of the day, I don't really expect there to be sort of any severe bias one way or the other.
Okay, that's one thing. Caulfield Guineas has been almost renowned for having a rails bias at times, Caulfield Guineas Day, so something to keep an eye on. First race we're going to look at, sorry, I'm going to jump in.
The rail is going back into the true for the first time for about, I think it's since August 29, so there is obviously that sort of pretty much, or 6 metres last time, but sort of 3 metres of really fresh ground there. So once again, that's something to keep an eye out for in the early races, and if you notice a pattern there, then obviously make adjustments. Yeah,
we've got plenty of time to sum up the track by the time this race comes around. Now, let's start here with the Golden Rose. Obviously, the favourite LA Kirk comes through here. I'm going to pause it, and we can identify another couple to watch now. King's Legacy. Well, LA Kirk, first of all, is in the green and yellow. He's third last in screen there. King's Legacy is on his back there in also those similar green colours. They're the two we're dealing with here, aren't they, Balls?
Well, also Mama Reagan's there as well. It's on the leader's back at the moment, having sort of done a bit of work early.
Of course. All right. Let's talk about LA Kirk and King's Legacy, because LA Kirk's the obvious. He's come up favourite. There's a bit of talk around King's Legacy and the chances of him turning the tables. What are your opinions on these two runners?
Yeah, well, out of these two, I definitely favour LA Kirk. He obviously had a bit of traffic problems there at the top of the straight, but he was quite strong through the line, whereas King's Legacy got sort of a rails run uninterrupted. And the thing I loved about LA Kirk here, North Pacific comes to challenge, and he holds into the line there with looks to have a great will to win to me. And if you look at the last 200-metre sectionals of the race, they've actually LA Kirk has run a quicker last 200 sectional than King's Legacy. Now, the thing in King's Legacy's favour coming to Caulfield is it was only second up in the Golden Rose, whereas LA Kirk was third up. So that's sort of, I suppose, if you're going to back King's Legacy, that's what you're sort of hanging your hat on to. And also, obviously, it's a proven horse over the mile as well. But, from those two, I definitely favour LA Kirk.
Okay, and Mamaragan, do you give him any chance of featuring?
No, I don't. I didn't really like his run there, despite he doing work early. But also, as we saw, he's got that horrid-looking map from the wide gate.
Okay, so clearly LA Kirk there over King's Legacy. He's well in the market, King's Legacy. So if he can't turn the tables on LA Kirk, he seems one to risk to my eye. Would you agree?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I sort of had him back pretty much last. He's drawn wide as well. And he's obviously got great connections. The Snowdens and Hugh Bowman rides the horse. So he's got that going for him. But, I think LA Kirk definitely has him covered.
All right, cool. Let's go down to Melbourne now. We're going to look at the Guineas Prelude, which was run a couple of weeks ago. Now, we reviewed this on the outside fence, obviously, after the race was run, and neither of us were a great rep for the race. Has your mind changed at all since then?
No, not really. The thing is, these are probably, I suppose, the better, or throw in Tagalar as well, but this is pretty much the Melbourne form. But yeah, I'm not a massive rap for a lot of these at a mile particularly, but there are a couple that I think can run well. But as far as winning chances, I'm not as bullish on this race as I am on others.
Okay, we've got plenty to look through here. We've got National Choice in front, Crosshaven second, Captain Corelli, Amish Boy, they're there as well. The two that run on to keep an eye on, the back last and second last there in screen. We've got Corborn in the in the yellowy green colours, and then Asar, which is the horse you talked about on the map, who went back to last there. If you're going to take one from this race, Balls, who do you want to take?
Yeah, the horse out of this race that definitely interests me, purely from this race, would be Camborne. It's, as we mentioned, in those light green colours out the back. Now, I think it's really looking for the mile. As you can see, it finishes off well here. And the big thing on Saturday, the blinkers go on as well. So that's I love that from the Mick Price stable. When he puts blinkers on a horse, they really seem to work. But as you can see, he's working through the field here. Back closer towards the inside, coming between runners, and finishes off really well. If the Caulfield Guineas was made up of just this field, then I'd be quite keen to back him. But unfortunately for him, there's obviously there's other form lines and horses I do have ahead of him. Okay,
what about Crosshaven? Because he strung two together. He's drawn wide, but he looks like he should be able to overcome the wide draw. Although you did mention there was those horses looking to kick up from inside draws. Is there any chance that he can get away with this, Crosshaven?
Well, his massive hope is, exactly, those horses from those inside draws don't really kick up, and he can lob outside the leader fairly easily without doing too much work. As you can see, he's a pretty dominant winner on this occasion, but they've only gone at a slow speed, and he's sort of been in the right spot at the right time and sort of sprinted home fairly well. So that's his best hope in a Caulfield Guineas. I wouldn't say he couldn't win, and it along with Camborne are the two best hopes out of this race, I think.
Okay, let's just watch that run through there, because they really hit the line well, that horse there, Camborne. We're going to go now and look at the run of a really highly touted Sydney horse next. We're going to go and look at the Dulcify quality. And this is this horse, Mo'unga, who they're even talking about possible Cox Plate tilt this week after his work during the week. He's basically the only one for us to take out of this Dulcify quality, isn't he, Balls?
Yeah, he is. He's back there second last in the sort of greeny aquas colours with the white cap. So if we just run the tape here, you'll notice just before this period, he actually cops a nasty check from the horse in front of him and sort of gets knocked off balance a bit. But as you can see, he sort of works his way into the clear, sort of halfway down the straight, and very impressive, that last sort of 200. Now, this race, the quality of this race here is obviously far less than, for instance, the Golden Rose that horses like Ole Kirk and King's Legacy come out of. So he's going to have to step up coming to a Caulfield Guineas. And in this race here, he did get a fast tempo as well that he was able to sit off and obviously come over the top of. He's a very strong horse. Now, as far as Caulfield Guineas go, it's a little bit of a leap of faith to sort of project him as a possible winner of the race, but he's a horse that's got a heap of scope. He's only had 3 starts, and he looks ultra promising at this stage, and he's obviously in good hands from the Chris Waller stable and the book Damien Oliver to ride as well.
Yeah, it's a huge lead, booking Oliver. Now, what do you make of their apparent change of plans with the preparation, where he was clearly favourite for the Spring Champion after this run, and then they were also talking Golden Roses, and then they just decided they're going to go straight to the Caulfield Guineas. Do you take anything out of that?
Not a massive amount, because there's possibly this win might have surprised them a little bit. They might have thought the horse was more a 2,000 metre horse, and he's shown obviously a pretty good turn of foot there and been impressive at the 1,500. So they've thought sort of he's well up to a Caulfield Guineas. I think he's a colt as well, so obviously winning a Caulfield Guineas would do wonders for his value as opposed to a Spring Champion, so that probably comes into it as well. So, it's not something I'd let worry me as far as whether I'm going to back the horse or not.
Yeah, that's a good point. And mate, I tend to agree. You look through his form, they started him off on a heavy 10 at the Gold Coast in the middle of June, which is not really where you'd expect they'd kick one off if they got the Caulfield Guineas on the horizon. And then, of course, they went to Newcastle before he won there at Rose Hill. So he might just be that rapidly improving horse that has surprised them, like you say. Now, the other race we're going to look at is this is Tagaloa, who's almost he's the horse with weight for age form with Glenn Fittich out of the race. We're going to pull up the Sir Rupert Clarke Stakes here now. We'll just pause it and find him. It's not going to be too hard because he was wide. He's there fifth in the... we've got to work out what these colours are, balls, because they stump us every show. Bluey, whitey, greeny. Anyway, he's 3 wide and he's fifth, Tagaloa. Now, he was... We said he lacks a killer punch, possibly, Tagaloa. Now, I'm wavering on this run a bit. I was first a little bit disappointed, even though he was wide, and now I'm thinking, maybe there's a bit more merit to his run than what I thought. Have you got any strong opinion on this performance?
I tend to agree about the lacking a killer punch. Like he was pretty good here, like considering he was wide no cover the trip, and he wasn't really beaten far. He's in that huge cluster of horses that sort of go over the line together around the placings. The thing he's got going for him here is he draws well. He's likely to either box seat or sort of be right there behind the speed. Craig Williams goes on, so you've got a nice big race jockey there. He's probably going to get every chance. As I mentioned with his first up run, I just don't really like how he's sort of been... He tends to get off the bit a long way from home, and it just seems to be a bit of a battle for him. But he's obviously a bit of a fighter, but he battles on well. But he's not really... He's the sort of horse that I can see looking the winner at the top of the straight, but sort of the classier, more dynamic horse can sort of run over him. So he sort of seems to lack that turn of foot a bit. So that's the way I've gone with him in this race. He's thereabouts. I think he's possibly a little bit short in the market at the moment. I think he's around that sort of $5.50, $6 mark. Seems a little bit short to me, but he's going to tick a few boxes as far as sort of what you want from a Caulfield Guineas winner.
Yeah, I find it hard to disagree, but we're going to go to our recommendations on how we're going to look to play the race, and I'm going to pop over here with looking to back Tagaloa. Now, my theory here is I like the fact that Williams, subsequent to that run, he's gone and got on the horse. I think the step up to 1,600 looks ideal. And I was just thinking in a race where a lot of these main chances are wanting to race off the speed, if I was trying to look for a different angle, then maybe... I don't expect them to go overly hard in this, and I think Tagaloa's the horse that can really put himself on speed and maybe surprise them here. And he's also the most similar horse in the race to Glenfiddich, who I was keen on. So a few reasons there for my looking to back Tagaloa in the race. Now, Balls, you haven't got a bet for us here. You're sort of worried about the prices you were telling me beforehand, and you prefer to maybe see come race day which horse you'd be backing at the odds on offer.
Yeah, well, Ole Kirk and Moanga are the two horses that interest me the most, but yeah, I just think at this stage, Ole Kirk more so than Moanga. They're probably a bit short in the market. I thought Ole Kirk might be sort of closer to $4 than more that sort of $3.29 to $4 mark. So. I'm happy to wait and see at this stage. Obviously, with a horse like Moanga, I'll be keen to keep an eye on the track pattern for the day because it'll be settling sort of back and wide and sort of coming wide in the straight, making its run. So if that looks to be doable or even some advantage, then I'll definitely become a lot keener on him. That's
another good point you make there. My enthusiasm for Tagaloa would probably be reduced if the track was a bit worse than expected and horses are really starting to sail down the middle. I'm going to put my neck on the chopping block here and say I'm against Moanga in the Guineas here. I think he's untapped, but he's still got a lot to prove, and I just think he'll be under the odds for my liking without him really proving anything against anything of any quality just yet. And given he's going to be back and coming wide at Caulfield, I'm happy to bet around Moanga. So one of us will look like a genius come Monday there, I'm sure. Balls. Any other comments on the Caulfield Guineas before we move on to the fillies?
Not really. I think we've pretty much covered everything. One little stat that I did stumble across. Obviously, Willie Pike's gone on to the favourite Ole Kirk, which makes a few punters, including myself, a little bit nervous given his form since he's come to Melbourne, which if you look at his last 50 rides, which have all been in Victoria, he's only ridden 6 winners with a return on investment of minus 40%. So I don't think he's in sort of the greatest form at the moment. and he's sort of getting a few decent rides. So this is obviously one of the bigger ones for him. Favourite in a big Caulfield Guineas, so all eyes will be on him, and that's also wouldn't shock me to see Olay Kirk drift a little bit if I suppose some of the bigger teams want to sort of take on Pike given his current stats.
And that'll get him to the price where you want to have a bet.
Yeah, so I'm happy to. I'm not scared to back Pike at the moment, but so yeah, possibly the horse could drift because of that, and I'm happy to step in.
All right, beautiful. Let's move on to the 1,000 Guineas. I'll pull up the market here. We've got a big field here, which is not always the case for the 1,000 Guineas, and this race has really opened up with the Sydney gallopers Hungry Heart and Vangelic coming down off their runs in the Flight Stakes. Because of that, there's been a fair bit of movement in this market, especially before the acceptances were made, Balls. What initially hit you when you saw the prices go up here?
Yeah, well, when the very first prices went up, I suppose I was a little bit surprised Hungry Heart wasn't favourite over Instant Celebrity, and that's pretty much corrected itself now. The other horse who I was a bit shocked isn't shorter is Vangelic. Obviously comes through the same form line as Hungry Heart and sort of ran a pretty decent race a week ago against it. So and it's obviously a go forward horse here. So I was a little bit surprised it's sort of around the $12 mark. And then, outside of that, obviously you've got a lot of those Melbourne fillies that were sort of mentioned over the weeks, reviewing those lead-up races, and they're sort of pretty much sort of in the right spots of the market.
Okay, let's go to the map. That horse you mentioned there, Vangelic, you've got her running to the lead. Does there look to be much pressure there for her, or maybe we get a bit of a softly run 1,000 Guineas?
Yeah, well, when I first did this map here, I thought there's sort of a bit of an even speed. Like there's probably not as much pressure as there is in the Caulfield Guineas, but there's sort of enough there that it's not going to be a walk in the park for the leader. But there's a bit of recent news has come to light. There's a quote from Mick Price regarding Night Raid, who said the horse will be ridden quiet, or words to that effect. So it's drawn wide, so I'm not sure what quiet means, whether they're just going to snag it out the back, because it's going to be sort of hard if it's drawn wide. So it's possibly not going to be on speed. And then behind Vangelic there, you've sort of got horses who prefer to sort of take a sit. Maybe Love Sensation would come up and sit outside the leader, but there's hardly other horses who are really going to pour it on, unless maybe a horse like Ecumenical, who looks to get caught wide from the gate. They want to offset that and go right forward.
Okay, so we've got a little query on the horses settling back. Is that fair? Yeah,
definitely. I think there's some chance Vangelic gets control of this race, and that can be very dangerous for its opposition. But a lot will determine, I suppose, what they do with Night Raid, and then a couple of those other horses that are drawn wide, sort of how keen they are to get forward.
Okay. First race we're going to look back at is the Flight Stakes, which is obviously the horses we've just mentioned. They're coming from Sydney. We've got Vangelic there in front. We've got Hungry Heart in the green colours sitting fifth. Is that the only two we've got to deal with?
Yep.
So let's run the tape. There was a fair bit of tempo in this race with Vangelic in front. What did you make of the runs of these two horses?
Yeah, so they have gone at a fast speed here, and there was quite a bit of action early in the race for spots up front. So Hungry Heart, to me, has had every possible chance here. It's just sat behind that speed, and obviously got to the outside at the top of the straight, and it's just been run over late by Montefilia off its back. Now, Vangelic, you can see, sort of put a gap in those other on-speed runners, and I was actually quite impressed with the run of Vangelic in this race, given the work it did early and its ability to sort of fight them off. And it wasn't really beaten too far in the end. It's just probably tied a little bit late, but it was sort of expected to. So I think there was plenty of credit in the run of Vangelic. Hungry Heart is obviously at SP very short in this race. It was obviously favourite, which it sort of has been in a couple of those fillies races in Sydney, without winning. So you've obviously got to respect the SP, but it did have every chance there, and obviously couldn't get the job done. So that's some, I suppose, little worry coming into the 1,000 Guineas. But to me, that looks the sort of, I suppose, the A grade form.
Okay, let's talk about these two horses coming from the big track at Randwick down to Caulfield. Do you think that advantages or disadvantages either of them?
I would have thought it definitely won't hurt Vangelic, who's an on-speed horse, and she didn't race at Caulfield, but she raced in Victoria as a 2-year-old, so she has experienced that way of going. Whereas Hungry Heart, I think had one run in Victoria, or she had one run in Victoria down the straight. But yeah, maybe the tighter Caulfield track wouldn't be as suitable to Hungry Heart as compared to a big spacious track like Randwick. So maybe that's something to keep an eye out for. But one thing with Hungry Heart, she does have the blinkers going on Saturday, so that's obviously an ace up the sleeve of Chris Waller, and he's decided to use it, and that could sort of sharpen her up a bit, staying at the mile and around Caulfield.
Okay, before we move on, if she won the Flight Stakes Hungry Heart, do you think we would see her in Melbourne?
No, I don't. I definitely don't. I think they probably expected to win the flight and obviously get their Group 1. Now they still haven't won a race this prep, and they obviously don't have a Group 1, so they've probably looked at the flight as a bit of an easy option, so to speak. Not obviously a over-the-line job, but a very winnable race. The horse has obviously come through this run well enough to head to Melbourne and take its place a week later. So it's some little worry that obviously I suppose it's an afterthought, but it's only a week. It is Chris Waller. The horse had only had sort of 3 runs this prep, so it's not like it sort of had a really long prep. So, and there's probably some chance that maybe they might have had in the back of their mind to come to Melbourne for an Oaks or a Wakefield or a race like that as well. So it's not something that concerns me a huge amount.
Okay, I'm just going to put the run through there because she doesn't stop Vangelic. She battles on reasonably through the line as well. So I'm with you. I was pretty impressed by that effort from Vangelic. Let's go now and look at the Melbourne fillies. We're going to go to the 1,000 Guineas Prelude, and we'll pause it here. Now, this was, well, that's a shocking place to pause it. There we go. That's a bit better. Now, this was a couple of weeks ago, and this was won by Instant Celebrity, which you can see there in the red colours. There's a few other runners here to take note of. Balls. Night Raid is the one that you talked about in terms of the speed map. Now, she's the horse in front there in those light blue colours. She led on that occasion, but that was the first time we had seen the lead. Personal there in the all blue behind her. She comes through to this race as well. Is there anything else of note in this race to look at?
Yeah, we've also got Mozzie Monster, who's 3 back the fence there behind Personal. It doesn't do a huge amount in this race. And then the horse I pointed out on the show when we were reviewing this race, Ecumenical, who's sort of 4 wide at the moment, those yellow blinkers, up on speed, the grey horse towing Instant Celebrity into the race.
Okay, we'll let that run. We went over Instant Celebrity and her chances of getting the mile on the show after this race was run. With a bit of time to think about it, have you made any strong decisions on whether she's going to run it or not?
Yeah, well, I think she will. I don't think sort of winning or losing will determine whether she runs a mile or not. I think at this level, at this time of the year, yes, she will run a mile. Now, the little issue, I suppose, for her is obviously those Sydney fillies coming down who are possibly a greater opposition than she has been meeting. And then in this race here, she probably got the best run you could possibly ask for on the day, considering it was a day where the horses were coming down the middle. She got a lovely toe into the race, sort of 3 and 4 wide. They went along at a genuine speed as well, so it sort of sat off that and then just let down in the straight. So it's pretty much had everything you'd ask for if you sort of back the horse. So it's won easy enough. So that's, I suppose, a tiny little query that if it does have things against it, like they only go at steady speed or it sort of gets cluttered up between horses or things like that, sort of how's it going to react at a mile and things like that happening? They're the questions that you're going to have to ask yourself if you're going to, whether you're going to back the horse or not, I think.
Okay, you said you were surprised that she was favourite over Hungry Heart. If I read between the lines, do I say you prefer to be backing Hungry Heart over Instant Celebrity given even odds?
Yeah, definitely. Without giving, I suppose, too much away, pretty much like the Caulfield Guineas here, I'm sort of a bit keener on the Sydney form as opposed to this Melbourne form, who I think over the weeks we've been reviewing these races, I've mentioned quite a few times, they do seem quite an even bunch. And it's a lot of run-of-the-race type stuff determining sort of who's winning the races and that not. Whereas I think, the Sydney fillies probably sort of have that bit of touch of class to them.
Okay, Ecumenical, you talked about her run at massive odds. Do you think that's a pox on the race as well, that she was able to finish so close given the run she had?
Yeah, that's another factor for sure. Like, it started 150 to 1 in this race, sat 4 wide, no cover on a genuine speed, and it's still there battling away and waiting to finish. I think running the third fastest last 200 of the race. So it's only been beaten a bit over a length, so that's definitely a little bit of a worry. Another thing is the horse outside Ecumenical there is Rock My Wand, which is a horse from Sydney, and looking at its form, I'd say its form is inferior to Hungry Heart and Vangelic, that sort of flight stakes type form in the 3-year-old filly series up there, and it's only been beaten a bit over a length as well here. So that's got to be a bit of a worry, I think, considering behind Instant Celebrity there was sort of a bunch of them there, sort of 5 across the track. So, I definitely think the jury's out a little bit on this form.
Okay. While we're talking about jury out on the form, let's go and look at the other Victorian lead-up race, which was the Jim Maloney Stakes. This was run a week before, which is the other group of Melbourne fillies we've got to deal with here. This race was won by Odium, who's their third defence in the blue and yellow stripe silks there. There's a couple of other horses in this race to point out. One in particular is Aidensfield in the, I always think of it as the Desperado colours, the brown with the white epaulettes, I think they're called. Any others here to take note of, Bowles? Actually, there is one out the back that's one of your favourites.
Yeah, we've got Agreeable out the back there, a horse who was spoken a lot about on this show over the week. So it's in those red and white Pinecliff colours as well. So they're, I suppose, and Mozzie Monster's the horse in front of it again. It runs in this race and probably runs a better race than it did in the Prelude.
Okay, are any of these a winning chance, genuinely, given the sort of form lines we've been talking about?
Probably not, no. But I find it hard to, I suppose, determine that this race is either superior or inferior than the Guineas Prelude. Like, if those Sydney fillies didn't come down, then it's probably, I'd probably just have Instant Celebrity just ahead of a few of these. But they only went a slow tempo in this race, and it really suited a horse like Odium, who was sort of right up there on the speed and got the split at the top of the straight. Now, it's probably going to receive a similar run in the 1,000 Guineas on Saturday. So if they do go at a slow speed, it possibly brings it into the race because we know it's got sort of a sharp turn of foot. Aidensfield ran well again. Those 3 down the outside all ran very good sectionals for the day. But given the slow tempo, that sort of put them out of play a bit. So, they haven't run too bad. But there's no filly in Melbourne who's really sort of banging the door down and sort of staking a claim saying, like, I'm a dominant filly type thing, apart from maybe Instant Celebrity. But as we mentioned, there's sort of those a few queries from its last run. Okay,
Aidensfield and Agreeable, they're 2 fillies that we've sort of been following along. So is it fair to say that the 2 we'd want to take out of this race, or is that underplaying Odeon a bit too much?
It's possibly underplaying Odium. I'd have it with those 2 as well. Odium's probably a little query at a mile, particularly if it's sort of a genuine mile. But as we mentioned, it's going to map well, and if they do get a slowly run race, it's sort of going to be in the right spot. A horse like Agreeable, when we had the odds up there earlier, it was sort of $30, $35, sort of near 40 to 1 type position where it sort of started right in the market in these lead-up races. So as we can see, the Agreeable sort of $34, $36 Betfair. So you possibly could get near $40 on the day. In those lead-up races, it started sort of $5.50, $4.40 and $6. And it hasn't won any of them, but it hasn't disgraced itself in any of them. It's actually, last start we mentioned, obviously it was a sprint home. It's run the 3rd best last 200 of the meeting and obviously the fastest of the race. So it probably couldn't have done more in that lead-up race. And I was just little bit surprised when I saw its price, considering only probably a couple of runs ago it was near all the rage. It was on I suppose a lot of people were tipping this horse for this kind of race. Jamie Carr rides, and it's likely to be back and wide. So obviously it comes, if we get a bit of a pattern down the middle, the inside starts to chop out, then I think a horse like Agreeable is a fairly big price.
I only just noticed Jamie Carr's name in there. No doubt you're fighting with Tasform Analyst for that 1A seat on the bus. Let's go and look at our recommended bets on this race. Not something I really wanted to see was us coming on the same horse, just for sheer lack of entertainment value here. But we're both keen on Vangelic at those $12 price. Let's just run through yours, Balls, because you've grabbed a full handful to talk about here. You definitely want to back Vangelic. Run us through why and run us through these horses you've got on the radar.
Yeah, well, Vangelic, I think I've sort of been through it already. She looks like a very good map in front, particularly if Night Raid's ridden a bit quieter. I loved her run last week in the Flight Stakes after doing a fair bit of work in front. And I think that Sydney form is a bit stronger than the Victorian stuff. I suppose the little query with Vangelic and Hungry Heart is that they're coming out of that fast run race last week, so it possibly could be a hard run for them, and now they're backing up within a week. So that's a little concern for them, and it's probably something we're not really going to know until after the race. So it's something you've just got to, I suppose, take on trust and factor that into the price you're willing to take. But yeah, I think Vangelic's a big price at $12 currently. As mentioned, there's the other horses that I'm interested in. Hungry Heart, despite it having every chance last week, it's definitely a horse I'm interested in the race, considering it brings that Sydney form. The blinkers go on. Obviously, first time at Caulfield, probably some query, but that's all, I suppose, going to be factored into the price, and you get, I think, Hugh Bowman to steer you around there. Yeah, and two at bigger odds. When we reviewed the Guineas Prelude, I did mention Ecumenical running so well at 150 to 1. You'll probably get near 50 to 1 again on Saturday. It's drawn wide. It's definitely a horse I'd want to see the fence off before having something on it, because I mapped it sitting 3 deep, so I can't see it not sort of being wide. So I definitely would want to see the fence off and horses able to sit wide before backing it. And I tend to, probably the same case with Agreeable, really. It seemed big odds to me. Less likely to be out the back and coming with one run down the outside. But yeah, you'd want to see a bit of horses being able to run on out wide, or it even being a bit of an advantage before stepping into her.
Very good. With you on Vangelic for all the same reasons. I do like the horses who can race forward at Caulfield, and I do like the horses who can stick on off a fast pace. I think they don't get picked up as often as the horses who flash home, but their runs are full of merit regardless. So Vangelic for me as well. If the inside is still holding up pretty well, I think Aidensfield does map quite well to get a nice sucky 3-back the fence type run. I think she's racing well. Been following her through this prep, and I think she's won it at longer odds who might show up if that pattern is playing more towards true racing. If the swoopers are coming into it a bit more often, then I don't think she deserves to be as far in front of a horse like Agreeable as she is in the market at the moment. But I'm hoping for some true racing there, and that'll suit Vangelic and Aidensfield. So that's our review of Caulfield well, not our review, it's our preview for both Guineas, the Caulfield Guineas and the 1,000 Guineas. Which one are you more confident in finding the winner on their balls?
I like the 1,000 Guineas more as a betting race than the Caulfield Guineas. I'm getting more bullish about Vangelic by the hour.
The more we talk about it, we did race off and have some bets on the Everest after you talked us into a couple on the review show, so we might have to go and, well, without giving anything away, you might have to go and have some more on Vangelic. Thank you, Balls. Thank you to everyone who watched. Let us know what you thought of the show, and any feedback would be much appreciated, given that it was our first go at a preview. If you like it, we'll come back and we'll come up with something next week. What have we got next week, Balls? Caulfield Cup?
Yeah, Caulfield Cup. So you're our show's international expert. So you've been spying on those horses down at Werribee. So I look forward to you giving us a once over on a horse like Anthony Van Dyke.
I'll go and do some research. All right, thank you, Balls. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you on the review show on Monday when we look back and see we've found the winners. Thanks, Balls.
Thanks, Hef.